6 months after the Battle of Neptune's Gate, Hyun-woo stood at the landing pad on Luna, watching a diplomatic shuttle descend from the stars. The shuttle bore markings from 17 different civilizations, species that humanity had never met until they liberated themselves from Council control. "They're early," Ji-won observed, standing beside him in her new uniform. She wore the rank insignia of Supreme Commander now, though she still felt uncomfortable with the title. "They're eager," Hyun-woo corrected. "They've been slaves for generations. Freedom is still new to them." The shuttle landed with a soft hiss of hydraulics. The boarding ramp descended and the delegates emerged. First came the Torvians, their reptilian features marked with ceremonial scars. Then the Keltherin, whose blue-green skin shimmered in the lunar sunlight. 15 other species followed, each unique, each carrying the weight of liberation on their shoulders. A Torvian diplomat approached Hyun-woo and performed a complicated gesture that Min Seo had taught him meant respect. "Ambassador Hyun-woo, I am called Resh. I speak for the Torvian people when I say that we owe humanity a debt we can never repay." Hyun-woo returned the gesture, hoping he performed it correctly. "You owe us nothing. You freed yourselves. We simply showed you that resistance was possible." "Then let us stand together," said a Keltherin representative. "Not as debtors and saviors, but as equals facing a dangerous galaxy." That was how the Free World's Assembly was born. Not through conquest or domination, but through mutual respect and shared trauma. 19 species united by their refusal to bow to tyranny. The negotiations took weeks. Each species brought their own concerns, their own fears, their own hopes. Tae-hyun served as a mediator, his understanding of alien psychology helping bridge cultural gaps. Soo-bin provided intelligence assessments about remaining council threats. Ye-jin and Sang-woo worked with Pravesh biomechanical specialists, combining human engineering with alien biological computing to create defensive technologies neither could have developed alone. But the council had not surrendered. They had merely retreated to regroup. Soo-bin briefed the Assembly's Leadership Council on the latest intelligence reports. The remaining council species have consolidated their forces in their core territories, she explained. Holographic displays showing star maps. They've abandoned the outer colonies and pulled all military assets back to defensible positions. "Are they planning another attack?" asked Resh. "Worse," Haewon said, stepping forward. She had been promoted to Soo-bin's second-in-command after her success disrupting council networks. "They're planning asymmetric warfare, sabotage, assassination, economic disruption. They can't defeat us in open battle, so they'll try to destroy us from within." She was right. Within days, saboteurs struck at human shipyards. Bombs exploded in Torvian population centers. Keltherin trading vessels vanished without trace. The council was fighting a shadow war, striking at vulnerable targets and disappearing before retaliation could come. The assassination attempts on Hyun-woo began on a Tuesday. He was leaving a diplomatic meeting on Mars when the first attacker struck. The assassin, a council agent using holographic disguise, got within 3 meters before Yoon-ji, his bodyguard, put 2 rounds through the attacker's chest. "Are you hurt?" Yoon-ji asked, checking Hyun-woo for injuries while her team secured the area. "I'm fine," Hyun-woo said, though his hands shook slightly. "Thank you. It's my job," Yoon-ji replied with a slight smile. "And you're terrible at staying alive on your own." The second attempt came a month later, a bomb in his transport vehicle. Yoon-ji discovered it during a routine security sweep and disarmed it with seconds to spare. The third attempt was more sophisticated, a poison delivered through his air filtration system. Yoon-ji, ever vigilant, noticed the unusual smell and evacuated him before the toxin could take full effect. "You should increase your security detail," Ji-won argued after the third attempt. "The council wants you dead specifically. You're a symbol to the assembly." "If I hide behind walls, I'm not leading," Hyun-woo countered. "I'm just surviving." There's a difference, but the attempts wore on him. Every public appearance carried risk. Every meal might be poisoned. Every stranger could be an assassin. The stress showed in the lines on his face, the gray spreading through his hair. The fourth attempt came during an assembly conference on Europa. A suicide bomber, another disguised council operative, pushed through the crowd toward Hyun-woo. Yoon-ji saw the threat and moved without hesitation, placing her body between Hyun-woo and the bomber. The explosion killed them both instantly. Hyun-woo woke in a medical facility, his body broken but alive. Taehyun stood over him, exhaustion written across his features. Yunji? Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew the answer. Taehyun shook his head. She saved you. Saved everyone in that room. The bomber's payload was powerful enough to kill dozens. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. Another name added to the list of those who died protecting humanity's freedom. Yunji had been young, talented, with her whole life ahead of her. Now she was gone. Another sacrifice on the altar of survival. The assembly mourned her loss and redoubled their efforts. Ji-won coordinated with 19 different species intelligence services to hunt council infiltrators. The net began to close around the shadow operatives who thought they could terrorize the free worlds into submission. But the personal cost mounted for everyone. Ji-won ordered ships into battle knowing many crews would never return home. Each casualty report felt like a piece of her soul dying. Subin directed operations that sometimes required sacrificing agents in enemy territory. Good people who knew they were walking into traps but went anyway, because the mission was more important than their lives. Taehyun worked endless shifts in medical facilities, trying to save victims of council terrorism. He watched people die on operating tables, watched families receive news that shattered their worlds, watched children cry for parents who would never return. How do we keep doing this? Ji-won asked one night, sitting in Hyunwoo's office months after the Europa bombing. How do we keep sending people to die? Because the alternative is worse, Hyunwoo replied, his voice tired. Because if we stop fighting, everyone who already died did so for nothing. Subin entered, carrying a datapad. New intelligence from Haewon. She's tracked the assassination orders back to a council remnant cell on Titan. We can hit them. Do it, Hyunwoo said. No more attacks on civilians. No more terrorism. We end this. The strike team, composed of human special forces and Torvian commandos, assaulted the Titan facility at dawn. The council operatives fought desperately, but they were outmatched. Within hours, the terrorist cell was eliminated, but Subin discovered something in their computers that chilled her blood. Evidence of council communications discussing surrender terms. Not military surrender, but something more nuanced. Diplomatic outreach from junior council diplomats who oppose their government's continued aggression. Some of them want peace, she told Hyunwoo. Not all council species support the hardline leadership. There's a reform movement. Hyunwoo studied the intelligence reports, seeing possibility amid the carnage. Then maybe there's another way to end this. Not through extermination, but through change. Ji-won was skeptical. After everything they've done? The deaths, the terrorism? After everything we've suffered. Hyunwoo said quietly, thinking of Yunji and Bo-ra and the millions of others. Don't we owe it to them to at least try for peace? If peace is possible? The assembly debated long into the night. Some wanted total victory, unconditional surrender. Others saw Hyunwoo's wisdom. War had freed them, but endless war would destroy them. Finally, they reached a decision. They would extend one more offer to the council. Not submission, not friendship. Just the possibility of something better than endless conflict. Outside the window, stars shone in the black. Somewhere among them, council species debated their own futures, and perhaps, just perhaps, both sides were tired of dying. Space around Neptune burned with fire and fury. Admiral Dongmin gripped the armrests of his command chair as his flagship shuddered from a near miss. Around him, officers called out damage reports and tactical updates, their voices steady despite the chaos. Enemy battle group breaking through Sector 7, his tactical officer reported. Send the corvette squadrons, Dongmin ordered. Tell them to use pattern Delta 3. Ji-won's voice crackled through his earpiece. Admiral, they're adapting to our tactics faster than predicted. We need to keep them off balance. Recommendations? Send the Indomitable on a feint toward their command ship. When they move to intercept, hit their flank with everything we have. Dongmin smiled grimly. Captain Bo-ra commanded the Indomitable, and she was fearless to the point of madness. Perfect for what he had in mind. The Council fleet outnumbered humanity's forces 5-1, but numbers meant nothing if your enemy refused to fight the way you expected. Human ships jumped in and out of FTL in short bursts, a tactic Council doctrine considered impossible. The stress on ship engines was enormous, but it allowed human vessels to appear behind enemy formations, strike and vanish before return fire could find them. Sang-woo's quantum disruption mines drifted through the battlefield, invisible until they activated near Council ships. When they exploded, they didn't destroy vessels outright. Instead, they scrambled sensors and communications, turning organized formations into confused clusters. Yejin watched from her command post in the asteroid belt as her rail cannons proved their worth. Kinetic projectiles moving at near light speed punched through energy shields designed to stop plasma weapons. Council ships died before their crews understood what killed them. But humanity paid a price. For every council ship destroyed, 2 human vessels burned. The numbers were against them, and everyone knew it. On the council flagship, the Krell matriarch raged at her subordinates. "How are these primitives holding against us? We have superior numbers, superior technology. Their tactics are unpredictable," a Velan tactical officer reported, its crystalline form pulsing with stress patterns. "They fight without honor, without formation." "Honor means nothing to the dead," the matriarch snapped. "Concentrate all fire on their command vessels. Kill their leadership and they will break." Light years away, on 17 different worlds, revolution exploded like a supernova. Mincio led Torvian workers in an assault on their council overseer's compound. They moved with desperate courage, 3 generations of oppression fueling their fury. "For freedom!" she shouted, firing the weapon that Jae-hyun had smuggled to them months ago. "For our children." The Torvians fought like demons. They had been miners and laborers, but oppression had taught them strength. Council security forces used to easy dominance crumbled before their assault. On the Keltheran factory world, Jae-hyun coordinated attacks on power stations and communication arrays. The Council's control infrastructure collapsed under the weight of simultaneous uprisings. "All units, this is command," he transmitted to resistance cells across the planet. "Seize the spaceports. Don't let any Council ships escape to carry word." Kelteran fighters stormed landing pads, overwhelming guards who never expected slaves to fight back. Within hours, the factory world that had produced weapons for Council expansion now belonged to its former victims. Haewon's computer virus spread through Council military networks like poison. Targeting systems misidentified friendly ships as hostile. Navigation computers provided false coordinates. Communication channels filled with corrupted data. The timing was perfect. As the Council fleet at Neptune struggled against human tactics, their rear positions descended into chaos. Urgent distress calls flooded in from subjugated worlds. The Council's military forces, stretched across the galaxy to maintain their empire, found themselves fighting wars on multiple fronts simultaneously. Back at Neptune, the battle reached its climax. The Indomitable, battered and bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches, charged directly at the Matriarch's flagship. Council ships moved to intercept, but human vessels threw themselves into blocking positions, sacrificing themselves to clear a path. Captain Bora stood on her bridge, watching the enemy flagship grow larger in the view screen. Half her crew was dead. Life support was failing. She had already ordered the survivors to evacuate in escape pods. "This is for everyone the Council enslaved," she whispered, then jammed the throttle to maximum. The Indomitable struck the Matriarch's flagship at a significant fraction of light speed. The impact released energy equivalent to a small nuclear explosion. Both ships vanished in a flash of brilliant light. The Council fleet, witnessing their leader's death, hesitated. That moment of uncertainty was all G1 needed. "All ships full assault," she commanded. "Hit them now, while they're disorganized." The human fleet, reduced to less than half its original strength, pressed forward. Sangwoo's disruption mines detonated in coordinated patterns, creating zones of chaos. Yejin's rail cannons fired in synchronized volleys, each shot carefully calculated to maximize destruction. The Council fleet broke. Some ships retreated toward the outer system. Others tried to form defensive positions but found themselves isolated and overwhelmed. A few attempted to jump to FTL, only to discover that Haewon's virus had corrupted their navigation computers. Dongmin watched the enemy scatter, feeling no triumph. Around him floated the wreckage of thousands of ships, human and alien alike. So many dead, so many sacrifices. "Cease fire," he ordered. "Let them run. We've won." The remaining Council ships fled through subspace, carrying news of their defeat back to their homeworlds. The mighty Galactic Council, unopposed for 3,000 years, had been broken by humans and the enslaved species they had underestimated. On Earth, Hyunwoo received damage reports with a heavy heart. Entire colonies had been bombarded before the Council retreated. Millions were dead. Tens of millions more were injured. The victory had cost humanity dearly. Taehyun found him in the command center, staring at casualty lists. "We won," the xenobiologist said quietly. At what price? Hyunwoo asked. Look at these numbers. Everyone represents someone's child, parent, friend. We told the council to go away. They came back. And this is what happened. If we had submitted, humanity would have died anyway, Taehyun reminded him. Slowly, across generations, but death nonetheless. At least this way we die free. We're not dead yet, Subin said, entering the room. Minseo reports that the Torvians control their world. Jaehyun says the Keltharan are celebrating in the streets. 17 species, all free because we gave them hope. Hyunwoo closed his eyes, thinking of Bora, and the thousands of others who would never see this freedom they had bought with blood. Then we honor their sacrifice by building something worth their deaths. No more tyranny. No more slavery. Not ever again. Outside, Earth rotated through space, scarred but unbroken. The stars that had looked so different 2 months ago now looked like promise. Humanity had passed through fire and emerged on the other side. The council had come seeking submission. They found defiance. They came seeking slaves. They found warriors. And when they came back after being warned away, they learned the true meaning of human determination. The reckoning had come and the galaxy would never be the same. The council's diplomatic vessel hung in space like a jewel carved from starlight. Inside, the delegates gathered in their war council chamber, confusion replacing their earlier confidence. The Krell matriarch paced back and forth, her claws clicking against the metal floor. What does it mean? Demanded a Veln representative. Our linguistic computers cannot parse the intent. Is it acceptance? Rejection? Some kind of human ritual? The matriarch's compound eyes flickered with frustration. I do not know. In 3,000 years of council expansion, no species has responded this way. Perhaps they are simply primitive, suggested another delegate, unable to comprehend the magnitude of our offer. No, the matriarch said slowly. The human ambassador was not confused. He was deliberate, controlled. This phrase means something to them. On Earth, Hyunwoo stood in the emergency command center deep beneath the Korean peninsula. Holographic displays showed military movements across all human space. Admiral Dongmin's weathered face appeared on the main screen. Fleet repositioning is 60% complete, Dongmin reported. We're disguising it as training exercises, but the council isn't stupid. They'll notice eventually. We don't need eventually, Hyunwoo replied. We just need enough time. What's the status of the Mercury shipyards? Engineer Ye-jin says they can accelerate production. We'll have 50 new warships combat-ready in 6 weeks instead of 3 months. They won't be pretty, but they'll fight. Ji-won stepped into frame beside Hyunwoo. Admiral, I'm sending you updated tactical scenarios. The council fights in formation. Traditional fleet engagements. We need to be unpredictable. Dongmin's expression showed grim approval. Unpredictable. That's one word for what you're planning. Suicidal is another. It's only suicidal if we follow their rules, Ji-won said. We won't. In another part of the command center, Subin monitored screens showing intelligence feeds from deep space. Her agents had been working for years, slowly infiltrating council territory. Now those investments would pay off. Minseo, report, she said into her communicator. The face of a young woman appeared, her Korean features disguised by holographic makeup to blend in with the local population of a council mining world. We've made contact with the Torvian resistance. They're willing to coordinate with us, but they're scared. The council crushed their last uprising 50 years ago. Tell them this time they won't fight alone, Subin said. Jaehyun, what about your position? Another face appeared, a man who looked tired but determined. I'm on the Keltharan factory world. The workers here are desperate. The council strips their planet bare and gives them nothing. One spark and this whole world will explode. Good, Subin said coldly. Get ready to provide that spark. Hey, one status? A third agent reported in from a council military observation post. I've accessed their tactical database. Their fleet doctrine is rigid, hierarchical. They've never fought an enemy that doesn't follow traditional engagement protocols. Subin allowed herself a small smile. Then they're about to learn something new. Meanwhile, physicist Sang-woo worked in a laboratory hidden inside an asteroid belt. Beside him, Ye-jin examined holographic blueprints of human warships. If we modify the shield generators this way, Sang-woo said, highlighting a section of the design, we can create temporary disruption fields. The council's sensors won't see through them. Ye-jin nodded, her mind already racing ahead. And if we mount rail cannons on rapid rotation turrets, we can fire in patterns they won't predict. Traditional galactic warfare uses energy weapons. They won't expect kinetic projectiles moving at 0.8 light speed. It's dangerous, Sang-Woo warned. One miscalculation and we destroy our own ships. Everything about this is dangerous, Yejin replied. But doing nothing means slavery. I'd rather die fighting. 2 months passed. The council delegates debated endlessly about humanity's cryptic response. Some argued for immediate military action. Others counseled patience. The matriarch, proud and insulted, made the final decision. We return to Earth, she declared. If the humans will not give us a clear answer, we will take what we want by force. Assemble the fleet. 300 warships gathered in formation. A display of overwhelming power meant to break humanity's will. They jumped through subspace and emerged at the edge of Earth's solar system. Hyunwoo received the alert while reviewing casualty projections with Jiwon. The numbers were terrible. Even with all their preparations, humanity would lose millions if this turned into a full war. They're here, Subin reported. 300 ships, standard council battle formation. Time to answer their question, Hyunwoo said quietly. The council fleet transmitted a message to Earth. The matriarch's voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Humans, you have had sufficient time to consider our offer. We grow tired of your games. Submit to council authority, or we will reduce your worlds to ash. Hyunwoo stood before the communication array, knowing that billions of humans and aliens watched this moment. He thought of his grandmother, who survived wars and hardship with dignity and tact. He thought of everything humanity had built, everything they would lose if they bowed to tyranny. We have considered your offer, he said clearly. Our answer is no. The single word echoed across space. On the council flagship, the matriarch's mandibles spread in rage. Then you choose destruction, she said. Fleet, advance. Admiral Dong Min watched the enemy fleet begin its approach toward Neptune's orbit. His own forces, outnumbered but determined, moved to intercept. He opened a channel to all human ships. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for the freedom of every thinking being in the galaxy, his voice carried across the fleet. The council expects us to break, to run, to beg for mercy, show them what humans do when someone threatens our home. On distant council-controlled worlds, Subin's agents received encrypted signals. 3 words, Operation Homecoming. Execute now. Minseo gathered the Torvian resistance leaders. The time is now. Humanity fights for its freedom. Will you fight for yours? Jae-hyun opened hidden weapons caches on the Keltheran factory world. Workers who had been slaves for generations picked up rifles for the first time in their lives. Hae-won activated virus protocols in council military computers, corrupting data and sowing chaos. In space near Neptune, the first shots were fired. Human warships broke formation, scattering in patterns that violated every rule of traditional fleet engagement. Council commanders shouted orders, confused by tactics that made no sense. Then Yejin's modified rail cannons opened fire, and council ships began to die. The Battle of Neptune's Gate had begun. Humanity's answer was clear. They would not submit. They would not break. They would fight, and they would show the galaxy that deceiving humans came with a terrible price. The phrase, "Go away and come back to me," finally revealed its true meaning. It was a warning, a challenge. And now, watching their ships burn, the council understood it too late. 2 years after humanity first told the council to go away, Earth had become something new. The blue planet that once held only humans now served as neutral ground where 28 different species traded, negotiated, and slowly learned to trust one another. Orbital stations ringed the world like jewels, each representing a member of the Free World's assembly. Hyunwoo looked older now. Gray dominated his hair and lines carved deep around his eyes. He stood in the assembly's main chamber, watching delegates debate trade agreements and defense protocols. So different from those early days when everyone expected war at any moment. Jiwon approached, her supreme commander's uniform worn with a weariness that spoke of too many battles, too many decisions that cost lives. We have a situation. She led him to a secure briefing room where Subin waited with Minseo and Hae-won. On the holographic display floated images of 3 council vessels, small diplomatic ships bearing white peace flags. They arrived an hour ago at the edge of Torvian space, Subin explained. The ships contain junior council diplomats. They're requesting sanctuary. It could be a trap, Hae-won warned. Council intelligence would know that asylum seekers might be welcomed. Or it could be genuine, Minseo countered. She had spent the last 2 years coordinating with freed species, building trust across cultural boundaries. Our intelligence suggested reform movements within Council space. Maybe this is proof. Hyunwoo studied the images. 3 ships, perhaps 100 individuals seeking refuge from their own governments. What do they offer in exchange for sanctuary? Subin pulled up another file. Intelligence. They claim Council leadership is planning genocide, biological weapons that would render Free World's planets uninhabitable. They have evidence, they say. The room fell silent. After 2 years of relative peace, of rebuilding and healing, the threat of total war had returned. If it's true, Jiwon said slowly, we need to act immediately. Biological weapons could kill billions before we could respond. If it's false, Haewon pointed out, we're letting Council spies into our territory. Hyunwoo made the decision that had defined his leadership. Grant them sanctuary. But Minseo, they're your responsibility. Watch them every moment. The diplomats arrived on Earth 3 days later. They were young by their species standards. Idealists who had grown disillusioned with Council tyranny. They carried data chips containing evidence of weapons research, targeting calculations for inhabited worlds, and communications between Council leadership, discussing the final solution to the human problem. Taehyun verified the biological weapon specifications. His face went pale as he reviewed the data. This is real. This pathogen would target mammalian respiratory systems. It would kill 90% of humans, Torvians, and 6 other assembly species within weeks. There's no cure. Where are the weapons? Hyunwoo demanded. One of the Council diplomats, a young Vel named Lish, projected a star map. 3 research facilities in deep Council space. They're nearly complete. Once deployed, there's no stopping them. Jiwon studied the facilities' locations. We'd need to strike all 3 simultaneously. If even one survives, they could deploy before we could stop them. Then we don't strike, Hyunwoo said. We eliminate them completely. The Free World's Assembly mobilized its fleet. Human ships joined with Torvian cruisers, Keltheran destroyers, and vessels from a dozen other species. Sangwoo and Yejin worked with engineers from multiple worlds to modify weapons for maximum effectiveness. This couldn't be a battle. It had to be total destruction. Admiral Dongmin's protege, Captain Su Jin, commanded one of the strike forces. She had been a junior officer at Neptune's Gate, had watched Bora's sacrifice, and had sworn to honor that memory by protecting the peace they had won with blood. All ships, this is Strike Group Alpha Leader, she transmitted as her fleet approached the first facility. Remember what we're here to prevent, no mercy, no hesitation. The assault was swift and brutal. Human stealth ships bypassed defensive perimeters while Torvian ground forces assaulted security stations. Keltharian intelligence operators disabled communication arrays. Pravesh technical specialists corrupted facility computers. Within hours, all 3 research facilities were destroyed. The bioweapons that would have murdered billions burned in nuclear fire. But Subin's intelligence networks discovered something unexpected. The genocide plan hadn't been universally supported within Council space. In fact, it had triggered massive internal opposition. Reform movements that had been gathering strength for years suddenly erupted into open rebellion. Council space is tearing itself apart, Haewon reported. Reformist factions are launching coups against hardline governments. Some species are declaring independence from the Council entirely. Hyunwoo saw opportunity in the chaos. He prepared a message and transmitted it directly to Council populations, bypassing their governments. Billions of beings across dozens of worlds received his words simultaneously. 2 years ago, your leaders came to us with deception. We told them to go away and come back to us. They returned with war, and we answered with strength. We did not seek this conflict, but we did not run from it. Now your leaders have attempted genocide, and we have stopped them. But we know that not all of you support this madness. He paused, letting the words sink in across light years. We extend a different invitation now. Come back to us not as masters or subjects, but as equals. Your leaders do not speak for all of you. Those who seek peace will find it. Those who seek freedom can join the Free World's Assembly. Those who continue to pursue war will learn that humanity and our allies do not forgive those who threaten our families. The transmission ended. Hyunwoo sat back, exhausted. Either this works or we've just started an even bigger war. It's working, Subin said 3 days later, monitoring intelligence feeds. Mass uprisings across Council space. Government buildings burning. reformist factions taking control. The old order is collapsing. The collapse took months. Some council species transitioned peacefully to new governments. Others descended into civil war. The hardline remnants, refusing to accept change, fought desperately to maintain control. G1 led assembly forces to support reformist factions where possible, not as conquerors but as allies helping others claim their own freedom. It was messy, complicated work. Nothing like the clean victory at Neptune's gate. 3 years after Hyunwoo first spoke that fateful phrase, representatives from former council species applied for membership in the Free World's Assembly. Not as defeated enemies, but as reformed nations seeking redemption. The ratification ceremony took place on Luna, where everything had begun. Hyunwoo, older and more tired than ever, presided over the proceedings. Beside him stood Jiwon, Subin, Taehyun, Yejin, and Sangwoo. The 5 of them had carried humanity through its darkest hour. Delegates from 47 species filled the chamber. Some had been enemies. Others had been slaves. Now they stood together, united by shared principles instead of fear. This assembly was born from pain, Hyunwoo said to the gathered representatives. Born from the refusal to accept tyranny. We have lost much. Millions have died, but their sacrifice bought us something precious. Freedom, not just for humans, but for all thinking beings. He looked out at the diverse faces watching him. Today we welcome new members not as defeated foes, but as partners in building something better. The galaxy will always have those who seek to dominate others, but now it also has us, and we will stand against tyranny wherever we find it. The chamber erupted in applause, 47 different species showing approval in 47 different ways. That evening, Hyunwoo visited the memorial on Luna that honored those who fell at Neptune's gate. Thousands of names were carved into black stone. He found Yunji's name among them and Bora's and so many others. Jiwon, Subin, Taehyun, Yejin, and Sangwoo joined him there. They stood in silence, remembering. Do you think they would approve? Jiwon asked quietly. Of what we've built. I think they would be proud, Taehyun said. We didn't just defeat our enemies. We showed them a better way. Hyunwoo knelt by Yunji's name, touching the carved letters. They came back to us, he whispered. Not as conquerors, but as friends. We kept our promise. He thought of his grandmother who taught him that phrase so long ago. She had meant it as a gentle way of refusing unreasonable demands. He had turned it into a warning, a challenge, and ultimately an invitation. Go away and come back to me. Simple words that changed the galaxy. Above them, Earth rotated in the black, surrounded by stations from dozens of worlds. Human children and alien children played together in parks that floated in the void. Torvian musicians performed for Keltaran audiences. Pravesh engineers taught human students. Species that had been enemies learned to be neighbors. The Free World's Assembly stood as proof that freedom was worth fighting for, worth dying for, and ultimately worth building together. The Council's old empire was gone, replaced by something humanity had always believed possible but never seen. True cooperation, real equality, shared purpose. The stars shone overhead, full of promise and danger both. But now humanity and its allies stood watch together, guardians of freedom in a galaxy that had known too much tyranny. The stars looked different today. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood at the viewing port of Orbital Station Harmony, watching the massive alien ships approach Earth. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like nothing humans had ever built. 47 different species made up the Galactic Council, and they had come to Earth with what they called an offer of friendship. Hyunwoo adjusted his diplomatic uniform and walked toward the conference chamber. He had been preparing for this moment for 3 months, ever since the Council's first transmission reached Earth. Behind him followed his team, Ji-won, the sharp-eyed military strategist who never missed a detail. Taehyun, the xenobiologist who understood alien behavior better than anyone. And Subin, the intelligence officer whose quiet presence made everyone in the room feel safer. The conference chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. Inside, the council delegates waited. The Krell matriarch stood tallest, her insectoid body covered in gleaming blue armor. Beside her floated the Velon Collective, crystalline beings that sparkled with inner light. There were others too, species that looked like they came from dreams and nightmares both. Ambassador Hyunwoo, the matriarch's voice came through the translation device, sounding almost musical. We welcome Earth to the galactic community. Hyunwoo bowed politely the way he had practiced. The people of Earth are honored by your presence. The matriarch's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. We come with an offer that will change your species forever. Membership in the Galactic Council brings many benefits, trade routes across 1,000 worlds, technology that will advance your civilization by centuries, protection from dangers you cannot yet imagine. Ji-won leaned forward slightly, her fingers tapping a silent rhythm on the table. Hyunwoo recognized the signal. She was alert, suspicious. These benefits sound wonderful, Hyunwoo said carefully. What does the council ask in return? A Velen representative pulsed with soft light. Simply that you follow council law. Disband your military forces. Allow our peacekeepers to protect your worlds. Submit to council jurisdiction in all matters of governance and resource allocation. The words hung in the air like poison. Taehyun's expression remained neutral, but Hyunwoo saw his jaw tighten slightly. Subin continued typing on her datapad, her face showing nothing. May we review the full terms? Hyunwoo asked. This is a decision that affects all of humanity. We must consider it carefully. The matriarch's compound eyes gleamed. Of course. We are not unreasonable. You have one standard cycle to decide. The council delegates left the chamber, their various forms moving with alien grace. As soon as the door sealed, Ji-won turned to Hyunwoo. It's a trap. Everything about this screams trap. I know, Hyunwoo said quietly. Subin, what did you find? Subin's fingers flew across her datapad. The contract has hidden layers, subspace encoding that our normal translators almost missed. I'm running deep analysis now, but preliminary results show clauses that would give the council complete control over human worlds. We wouldn't be members. We would be property. Taehyun pulled up holographic displays showing biological scan data from the council delegates. Look at these readings. Stress hormones, pheromone signatures, micro-expressions. They're lying. Every single one of them showed signs of deception during the presentation. Hyunwoo studied the data, his heart sinking. Humanity had dreamed of joining a galactic community for generations. They had imagined wise alien civilizations guiding them toward enlightenment. Instead, they found predators wearing diplomatic masks. How many other species have they done this to? Ji-won asked. Subin pulled up another file. Intelligence suggests at least 17, all now serving as labor forces on council worlds. Mining operations, factory planets, forbidden from communicating with each other. The room fell silent. Outside the viewing port, Earth rotated slowly, beautiful and blue and unaware of the danger hovering in orbit above it. We need time, Hyunwoo said finally. Time to prepare. Time to understand what we're facing. If we reject them outright, they'll attack, Ji-won said. Their fleet in orbit could glass our colonies before we mobilize. If we accept, humanity becomes slaves, Taehyun added. Hyunwoo closed his eyes, thinking. There was a phrase his grandmother used to say when he was young. When someone demanded too much, when someone tried to force her hand, she would smile and say those words. Words that could mean many things depending on how you heard them. I have an idea, he said. It's risky, but it might buy us the time we need. The next day, the council delegates returned to the conference chamber. The matriarch's posture suggested confidence. She expected submission. The other delegates arranged themselves around the room, waiting for humanity's answer. Hyunwoo stood, his hands clasped behind his back. The people of Earth have considered your generous offer carefully. And? The matriarch leaned forward. Go away and come back to me. Silence filled the chamber. The Velen Collective's lights flickered in confusion. The matriarch's mandibles spread wide. What does this mean? She demanded. Hyunwoo smiled, but his eyes remained cold. It means exactly what it says. Go away and come back to me. This is not an answer, a Velen representative said, their crystalline voice sharp. We require acceptance or rejection. And I have given you my answer, Hyunwoo replied calmly. Go away and come back to me. The matriarch rose to her full height, towering over the humans. You dare to mock the Galactic Council? I mock no one, Hyunwoo said. I have given you the answer that humanity offers. If you do not understand it, that is not my concern. Ji-won stood beside him, her hand resting casually near her sidearm. Taehyun and Subin flanked his other side. The message was clear. They would not be intimidated. The matriarch stared at Hyunwoo for a long moment. Then she turned to the other delegates. We withdraw to consider this response, but know this, humans. The council's patience has limits. The alien delegates filed out of the chamber. As soon as they were gone, Ji-won let out a breath she had been holding. That was either brilliant or insane. Probably both, Subin said. Hyunwoo watched the council ships through the viewing port. Send word to all human colonies. Begin quiet mobilization. Contact Admiral Dongmin. Tell him to position the fleet for defensive operations but make it look like routine exercises. What if they come back demanding a real answer? Taehyun asked. Hyunwoo's smile faded. Then we give them one. But it won't be the answer they want to hear. The council ships remained in orbit, dark and waiting. Earth continued its rotation, unaware that everything had changed. Humanity had bought itself time with a phrase that could mean 100 things. Now they had to use that time to prepare for war, because Hyunwoo knew the truth. The council would come back, and when they did, humanity would be ready to show them what happened when you tried to deceive the human race.